Hello and welcome to the Farmers Supply Association Agri Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmers Supply Association. Well, we're taping this program on October the 14th, so obviously one of the main topics we want to talk about is harvest progress. And you know, we've had such a dry period of weather. You can go back to about, I think, August 18th until now, and a lot of places have only gotten maybe around an inch of rainfall. You know, it's come several maybe quarter-inch rains, tenth rains, just stuff like that, and it's added up to about an inch in places. Well, there's some people that have gotten a little more than that, but again, some just around an inch of rainfall, so great harvest weather. I mean, don't know that I've ever seen harvest weather like that for such an extended period of time. Usually you'll get a rainy day now and then that, you know, you'll get a little break and get some time for maintenance and maybe a little time off, but not this year. Pretty much every day it's been pretty decent harvest weather, so progress has been good. You know, it's pretty well advanced. There's guys out there that are done with rice and beans, maybe even corn if they had all three crops. So, you know, good progress. Now there's been one little hiccup this year, and that's been some of our rice fields been real slow to dry down. And I've been getting those calls really from probably a month ago. You know, early to mid-September the calls started coming in. And yesterday, October 13th, I got a call, and the guy said, "Am I the only one having this problem?" I said, "No, it's been going on ever since harvest started." In fact, it was addressed in the Arkansas Rice newsletter that was put out last Friday, October the 7th. And again, just certain fields and some, you know, fields have just been slow to dry down, and really, really very slow to dry down. And you know, people think they might be able to get out there and cut a sample, and it's still in the 20s, and you know, just won't fall down as far as the moisture. You know, again, been seeing that for over a month, and questions. I thought, well, you know, we had a below normal August. Maybe it was those cool conditions that caused this to happen. But finally got an answer, which hopefully it was the correct answer last week in the Arkansas Rice newsletter from Jared Hartke, state rice specialist. And you know, he said it's been such a dry period, and you would think that would work to dry the rice down. But sometimes may work the other way around. You know, if you're getting some showers, some heavy dews, and there's a lot of free moisture on the outside of that grain, well, when that evaporates, it actually pulls moisture out of the middle of that grain. So, you know, we haven't had those conditions where we've had that a lot of evaporation, so it hasn't pulled that moisture up out of that grain. So, you know, that being the case, you know, the outside may be dry, but again, we're not pulling it out of the inside of that grain, so that grain moisture is not going down because of that. So it's been kind of an unusual situation, but yeah, hopefully, again, most of the rice is out, but you'll still see fields now and then. Again, still getting calls about that moisture not going down. So, you know, we got a shower a couple days ago. We're supposed to get a little more this weekend, so maybe that'll help pull some of that moisture out and get these remaining fields to the point that we can be low enough that we can harvest them. So that's where we're at as far as harvest progress. I want to talk, of course, just a minute or two about yields. You look at rice and beans, you know, the yields have been pretty solid, good, but we don't have any of those, really a lot of those top end yields this year. Really haven't heard any top end yields this year, but you know, they're not disastrous either. And of course, you know, several obvious reasons for that. You know, if you look at, you know, the year we had, it was hot really until late July. It was dry from like May 26th to July 17th. Got into another dry period, you know, and from about, again, August 18th on. So, you know, those conditions are not conducive for high-end yields. So, you know, again, just not great yields, but okay yields. Also in rice, we've had the grass issue. We've talked about that, just a pretty grassy crop overall. Had an interesting conversation with one farmer earlier in the week, and he was talking about, you know, some of his rice fields, and you know, he had some grassy areas out there. He had some areas that didn't water well, you know, and he said every time you'd hit one of those grassy areas or hit one of those areas, you know, that probably was really tough to water, he said that yield monitor would just go down. So again, you know, we know the grass is going to cause that. Sometimes we don't think about, you know, maybe the water situations, but this year that was certainly a factor as well. So again, you know, same thing with soybeans. Just, you know, it's not a bad crop. It's a decent crop, but just not a top-end crop. Now with corn, a little bit different story right there. We've got some bad yields in corn. Now we've also got some good yields out there. I've heard some yields, 220, 230, 240 even in places, but I've also heard some yields down around 100 and 110, 120 in that area. So that's, for irrigated corn, that's obviously not good. And it all goes back mainly to irrigation. It could not only irrigation, temperature was also an issue. Maybe planting date, maybe hybrid could all be a factor. But I think the one common thing is the irrigation. If you irrigated your corn this year like you do normally, it probably wasn't enough. Because other years you're getting some showers, some rains in there in between those waterings to kind of help out. But this year, those weren't there. So you had to tighten that water schedule up a little bit if at all possible. Sometimes that's not possible. So again, corn a lot more variable and a lot more bad yields. So that's kind of where we're at with the yields. I want to move to a little bit different topic as we move into fall now, and I want to talk about fall ryegrass control. And this has been building over several years. Every year, or last couple especially, but really it's been building up for several years. We get to April and May and get closer to that planting period for next year. The calls start coming in, the ryegrass starts getting visible in these fields, especially the ones that have already been worked, and the guys are just wanting to plant right into that, those minimum till or even no-till situations. And the ryegrass is out there. It's not real big, in March and before, but once it starts growing in April and May, it gets those big old clumps out there, and it's an issue that can even be a problem with planting. So, what we've been doing obviously isn't working in those situations. So just like everything else, with weed control, I talk about it with rice every year. We've got to use those residuals. We've got to keep it from ever coming up, and that's going to be our best control method, our best management method. So, we haven't really thought about that much in the fall before, but we need to start thinking about that and doing something about it. Again, those pre-emergence herbicides are the answer usually. Of course, they've got to be activated. They've got to get rain to activate them, so it's not just an automatic. But again, pre's can be really help us in this situation. The pre's available include like Dual, Zidua, Anthem Flex. We can use those with corn or soybeans. Now we also have a product called Boundary, which is a mixture of Dual and Metribuzin. That's a good option for soybeans. Now, if we're going to be planting rice next spring, the only answer is Command. That's the only product we really have available. But any of these pre-emerge herbicides for this specific situation is going to be helpful for us, especially if we get a rain real soon after application to get those activated. So we need to be thinking about that. If you're doing this and there's ryegrass present, now there may not be yet, but if we get into some little later applications, if there's ryegrass present, we need to be controlling that ryegrass as well. Post-emergence and clethodim is our Select, or Section 3 is our product. It's a clethodim. Those products like that need to be mixed in there with your residual to kill the ryegrass that's out there, and then get residual and keep the rest of it from coming up. So, those are some possibilities. Also, gramoxone is a good material to kill what's out there. Gramoxone plus a PS2 inhibitor. Something like a gramoxone or a Boundary, with a gramoxone would be very good there as well, because you're going to get your residual and you're going to get your gramoxone plus your PS2 with that Metribuzin and that Boundary. So those are some options right there. Again, you got to get rainfall to get it activated. But let's be thinking about these residuals for ryegrass. The timing is now. Mid-October to about the end of October is the best time for this. Now you can apply these a little later, and a lot of times with temperature fluctuations, we'll have multiple flushes of ryegrass come up really on into the fall. So, but a lot of times that main one will be in this late October, early November period. But again, let's be thinking about it now and try to get that done, by early November at the latest, and hopefully get that out in front of a rain. Be watching the forecast, get that out there in front of a rain to get it activated. I want to close up with some hints or some management items on wheat planting. There's been a lot more talk about wheat over really since last spring when the price went up, and people have been talking about wheat. Now, I don't know how that'll translate into acreage, or not. I mean, people have gotten used to not planting wheat. They like benefits of not planting wheat, not having to deal with it, getting that early soybean planting in next spring. But there'll probably be some again, some more wheat planted because of the price and interest in that. So I want to hit on just a few management items. Number one, planting date. Usually when I talk about planting date, I got to talk about the disadvantages of planting early. Well, we're already into the wheat planting period now, so I don't have to worry about talking about those disadvantages. So we're in that window right now, to me, about the 10th of October to early November. Usually if you get later into November, there's less tillering, and if you have a lot of cold weather, then those late plantings aren't as good. Now, if we have a mild November into December, like we had last year, where those late plantings can do very well. But again, we're in that window right now, and hopefully we've got to have some moisture out there in a lot of places right now and get this wheat planted by early November. Seeding rate, generally 26 seed per square foot is what the research has shown to be kind of an optimum seeding rate. And of course, that's going to vary depending on seed size. So, about 90 pounds roughly, maybe a little less than that. It's going to be where we need to be on these grain drilled situations in good conditions. If it's a little rougher, if you're broadcasting, you may need to get up there around 2 bushels or so for your seeding rate. Fertilizer, wheat is not a heavy needer of pre-plant fertilizer. I like to get some phosphorus out there, 40 to 46 units of phosphorus out there pre-plant, or you can do that, if you wait till you get a stand and put it out there post-emerge over the top. But I like getting some fertilizer, some phosphorus out there earlier. I think that helps. As far as nitrogen, unless you're planting late, like on up into November, or you're planting behind rice, which we don't do a lot of right now, those are the situations where we might want to put some nitrogen out there pre-plant, but otherwise we can probably get by without nitrogen if we're not in those situations. Weed control, again, ryegrass is number one in wheat generally. And the things I talked about earlier with ryegrass apply pretty much to wheat as well. Get a pre out there, a delayed pre-application out there just as soon as that wheat imbibes its moisture and starts coming up. Zidua, Anthem Flex are the best options right there. They're both rated a 9 on ryegrass. So if we can get those out there, again, as quick as we can after we get that germination and get a rainfall to activate them, they're going to be very effective for us. Again, if we have existing ryegrass out there when we plant, we need to control that before that wheat emerges. And of course, gramoxone would be a great option right there. We don't want to use the clethodim in that situation because it has soil activity and it could affect germination of that wheat. So again, let's look at gramoxone as the option if we've got something out there that we need to control, right before emergence of the wheat. So again, that's where we're at right now. Hopefully by our November program, we'll have this crop wrapped up and we can maybe get a little rest this winter. This has been Randy Klepeczka with your Farmers Supply Association Ag Rye Report.